When you, the founder or the person running the business, you need a challenge. You need someone to be challenging you, not challenging how you're doing things, but almost challenging your business model as well, which is quite strategic from a fractional CFO perspective. That's one of the things you deliver. You can look at us. I can look at a set of numbers and see something quite different to you. I'll immediately focus in on the different types of revenue streams, the gross margins on each stream. I'll look at things from a trend perspective, whether things are profitable or not. It's amazing, and not really in the affiliate space, but in how many industries where businesses are big, they're actually running a stream of business that's loss making. So big, grown so quickly. If you narrowed out and carved out a P&L for that particular vertical of their business, it's loss making. And if you don't set your numbers up to see that, you'll carry on doing it and putting money in the wrong place.
I'm John Wright, and you're listening to Affiliate BI, the business intelligence and affiliate marketing podcast brought to you by Snapstrong.
Welcome to the Affiliate BI podcast. Today we're chatting with Rowan Ellis, who is the co-founder of XVARO, and he does fractional CFO focused on business transformation through M&A, back office transformation, risk management, and I think Rowan can share a couple more things he does as well. Rowan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, John. Good to see you.
Always great chatting with you. We've had quite a few chats over the last few months. I feel like I'm being dragged over to your side of the business where, as a startup who's got investors, they're like, we want clean books, clean everything. And so I think that's how we started chatting.
It is. Yeah, it is. John, how do you want me to just give you give a bit of background on us and XVARO and what we do?
Please share that.
No problem. So we're a really small consultancy. We set up a few years ago. We saw a gap in the market whereby you have small startups, probably businesses that don't have the biggest cash flows, and they're looking to put processes in place, raise money, do the right thing, but they can't afford big consultancies and big consultancy costs. So we looked at really what the problem statement was, and we found that it was resource, it was process, and to a certain extent, it was timing and cost. And we looked at that problem statement, put it all together, and popped out a consultancy that offers a number of those services in various models.
And then just to go a little bit deeper into it, like something that I've only experienced in the past 1 to 2 years is this concept of fractional CFO. And I was like, oh, there's fractional CMOs. And it's like this concept of fractional seems to have just exploded post-COVID, where a lot of people said, hey, I can become a consultant, and you're actually delivering really good value without having to, like you said, have to hire a CFO full-time. So do you think affiliates could benefit from just basically saying, okay, we need to organize our books. We can't afford full-time. We don't need full-time. What does that look like?
Absolutely. I think you're right. It's a reasonably new term. Some geographies have been doing it for longer than others. And I think you just need to get your head around it a bit. But it's definitely beneficial both for the person delivering the service, the CFO potentially, and the client. Now, when CFOs are expensive, they hit cash. So if you've got a startup, you want to do the right thing, but you're also really conscious on your free cash, your cash flow, and keeping your business going. And back office processes always get ignored, right? People are chasing the money, as you should. You want to keep your business going. You can't lose sight of what you need to get in place, because if you try and unpick things you've done wrong earlier, it's really hard. But fractional CFO, it's not just come about. It's not just a term that's used for startups or earlier companies. With the advancement of technology as well, look, I'm not saying technology takes away the need for accountants, absolutely not, but good accounting systems, good finance systems and things like that allow the staff internally, educates the staff and gives them the tools to actually do a lot of the work themselves. So technology plus early stage, there's absolutely a place for fractional CFOs. And I actually think, slightly going off piece here, but it's actually fractional accounting support, without trying to sound like a salesman. But us in XVARO, we have various levels of fractional support. And often you talk about bookkeeping a lot, but there's a huge value in a good bookkeeper, right? Bookkeeping is everything. But you can get fractional controllers, fractional financial planning and analysis people, fractional CFOs. So often the model that works best is potentially some companies outsource their bookkeeping to a service provider. Not saying that is the best, but often do that. And then they get a fractional CFO to help them with the real strategic work, setting up legal entities in the right place, thinking about M&A, transactions, putting in a new accounting system. And you definitely don't want to pay those guys loads and loads of money when you only need them for one day a week, or maybe a day a week and a week a month around your close period, or annually when you do your statutory accounts. But what you cannot ignore is the need for accounting processes. It is there and it's there to stay. Got to get it right.
And I'm trying to make a comparison where in the SEO space for people that do search engine optimization consulting, I'm wondering if this is the same thing. Because by you offering fractional services or fractional accounting, my assumption right now is that you get to work with a lot of different companies. You get to see the good, the bad, the ugly. And I'm assuming that the more clients you work with, you're gaining more skills and experience. So would you say that's probably a slight advantage of going, I can't have the full time over here because we don't have the budget for it? The more experience you gain, it's the same thing for the SEO consultant that has years of experience and they're like, look, I've seen and done everything.
Absolutely. And you also, it gives you an opportunity to grow with the company and actually grow that relationship, which helps because often what works with fractional CFO type work is you go in there, there are different things. There's business as usual support, and then there's projects like acquisitions, like fundraising, like things like that, where they actually are quite focused. You need a person in there to do that thing for you, and then they move on. But with what I've found is, so I work in the gaming space and others, but we talk gaming for a bit. You've got operators, you've got affiliates, you've got media, you publishers, whatever else, different terminology. But definitely you see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you definitely see best practice. And every now and again, you've got to move your accounting hat to the side and put a little bit of industry nous on there and maybe a little bit of commerciality on there, and then look at what the best fit is for the organization. But just in the affiliate space, different affiliates do different things well and different things badly. Very seldom you get someone doing everything right. The problem is that, again, it's a chicken and egg situation. You start a business, you've got a concept, it starts doing quite well. You focus on the business, your client relationships, suppliers, et cetera, et cetera. And suddenly one day when you're big, you go, shit, we should have done the accounting. And you've got to think, and then you need to go back and unpick that. So I think that most affiliates, most startups in any industry can get the fractional finance support in at quite a low cost, get a relationship going with that consultant, so to speak. And if you need more of their time or their business's time, you can organize it, right? But they learn your business, they learn your industry, they learn your people. I personally, my best for me would be to have 5 clients that come back over and over again, maybe 10 at a push, but no more than that, right? From a fractional perspective. And some need more of my time, some need less.
And like behind me, I've got a whole bunch of books that I'm always reading. And one book that comes to mind is called The Slight Edge. I forget who the author is, but the concept is that you're compounding wins over time. They don't have to be big wins, but you're moving the needle every day. And I'm wondering if maybe affiliates don't do enough of the accounting work as a small startup, but I'm wondering if that would move the needle for them if they actually had an eye on the pulse of their business. Because I think when you don't have a QuickBooks or a Xero setup or any setup really, I'm just wondering, imagine being an investor. And I think you've been on this side where you've got M&A transactions over here. The bigger company wants to acquire the smaller company. The bigger company has really solid books all the time, and they're looking for best practices.
Yeah, no, you're right. And when you, the founder or the person running the business, you need a challenge. You need someone to be challenging you, not challenging how you're doing things, but almost challenging your business model as well, which is quite strategic from a fractional CFO perspective. That's one of the things you deliver. You can look at I can look at a set of numbers and see something quite different to you, John. I'll immediately focus in on the different types of revenue streams, the gross margins on each stream. I'll look at things from a trend perspective, whether things are profitable or not. It's amazing, and not really in the affiliate space, but in how many industries where businesses are big, they're actually running a stream of business that's loss making. So big, grown so quickly. If you narrowed out and carved out a P&L for that particular vertical of their business, it's loss making. And if you don't set your numbers up to see that, you'll carry on doing it and putting money in the wrong place.
I actually wonder, I don't know if I can find the data, but I did a quick survey on LinkedIn to ask affiliates or just people in general. It's like, what accounting systems are you using? Is it QuickBooks? Is it Xero? Is it something else or nothing at all? And the answers were all pretty much evenly split, like 20 to 30% each. So it makes me wonder, like, I'm going to make an assumption that most affiliates that are making, let's say, under 10 grand a month don't really do proper accounting. They basically just ship off everything to their accountant unless they love doing accounting and do it themselves. But I'm assuming it's just basically, here's the mess. And to be honest, I've done that for a long time and just said, here's all my stuff. I don't care what this looks like. I just want it done.
Absolutely. That happens. We all do it. Accountants do it with their own affairs, right? I'm not squeaky clean either. I think, so looking at it holistically, I was about to go and start some great business that was going to take off and fly. The first thing I would do is, all much of a muchness, I'd implement Xero, right? You open a bank account, you get Xero, you join them, and you at least start getting a recording of your transactions. Once you've got all of that done, you've at least got something to look at on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. You've got your bank statements that are itemized, your items that are aligned to the right things, they're feeding into the right GL code. Just getting that in, it doesn't cost a lot. That is something that doesn't cost a lot. You can get that done quite quickly. And if you've got the right kind of people in your organization, they can actually run Xero pretty easily, and they might need a bit of accounting help for certain aspects of it. But you can do that. And just getting that in place just gives you control immediately. You've got to do it right, but you will have an element of control immediately. Xero tells you when you've got VAT returns and tax, and you've got to submit accounts and all of that. But you just need to get something in place. Spreadsheets are not the answer.
Okay. So very quick question. QuickBooks, Xero, or FreshBooks? Which one would you not recommend, or is Xero at the top of your list?
So at XVARO, we use Xero a lot. We work with the others. We get slightly bigger companies like Oracle NetSuite, which is great. We use Xero a lot. We use Dynamics, Microsoft. So we use Microsoft products. And I think, John, without getting too technical, I think all of them, they're competitors of each other. So they all do very similar things. I think the key to any ERP or general ledger implementation is getting that chart of accounts right. Because if I said to you, how do you run your business, John? You would say, well, I like to see this, this, and this. You need to make sure that you set your chart of accounts up right. Then when you start producing your reports, automated reports, you can see exactly what you need to see. I wouldn't say one's better than the other. I mean, I'm better at Xero and I can do it. I can put it in more quickly. So that would be my default. I'm working with a client that's been going for a while and is making millions and it's got nothing. So what we're doing there is they've got a number of legal entities dotted all over the globe. Some have got something, others have got nothing. But what we're having to do using Xero and various other systems is do a consolidation on top of those systems. But I think they're all decent, to be honest, John. Just get something in.
Cool. I'll stick with QuickBooks then. I'm glad
Yeah,
I don't have to move.
No.
So you talked about a couple of things earlier, and I just wanted to know, what do affiliates need to do for good bookkeeping? Because we talked about P&L, balance sheets, and documenting their assets. And we're in that situation now where we technically have P&L, but we have companies saying, hey, we'd like cleaner P&L reports. We're working on that. And then when it comes to balance sheets and assets, this is where I'm like, what does this look like? And when should affiliates start zeroing in on this?
Yeah, really good question. So if you were doing things, if the ideal state, which is not hard to get to, is that you have a financial model, right? Your financial model sounds complicated, is your financial statements that you will need. You've got a P&L, you've got a balance sheet, and you've got a cash flow, and they're all integrated, right? Now, balance sheet is a different story. You'll have an annual audit, and auditors will come in and they'll either prepare your balance sheet or audit your balance sheet, or different parties will do different things. But I think you get your P&L right, and then as a tech company, you continually investing in tech. You've got intangibles and you've got tangibles, but your balance sheet, obviously a large chunk of your balance sheet is going to be the value of your technology, the thing that makes you a business. And to get that, you've obviously got to do valuation. But the thing that you've got to understand, and this is where we go in and go, you haven't done it wrong, but you haven't done it exactly to benefit yourself. The thing, I think, from a balance sheet perspective in a tech company is what to capitalize and what not to. So you spend some cash on a piece of tech. Do you just expense it, or do you say, hey, it's actually adding to the value of the asset, so we're going to capitalize this amount, and that the asset value is going to increase? So that's really important, and it's worth getting some advice on that. Really important. And then affiliates I've seen it happen time and time again. There was a little bit of an affiliate acquisition spree a few years ago with the US opening up. So big affiliates were buying smaller affiliates and bloggers and things like that. And they're paying big sums of money for them. And when you buy a business, you've got to do your purchase price accounting. You're basically doing a valuation of that business. And then when you own the business and it's not performing as well as it should be performing, you get a thing called an impairment, which I'm sure you've heard about.
Yeah.
But that's when you write down the value of the asset, and the double entry, it hits the P&L, and investors hate that because that's a surprise. So you need to, in tech, particularly affiliate websites, apps, things like that, you need to really look at the performance of those assets from an impairment perspective, because it is not pretty when you get hit with one. Also, it's not good to fight against impairment if it should be impaired, because then you just get yourself tied in a knot as well.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
But that is something, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing, John, I don't know if it fits in now, but I think it can. I'd love to hear other people's views, but from my perspective, so I've done interim and fractional CFO roles at big affiliates. So been there and done that. It's hard work. But when we looked at finance technology and looked at which was the best ERP, and every vendor was telling us that their product would fit perfectly and whatever, the biggest issue we ever had was the billing. So a lot of ERP providers tell you that the ERP will deal with your billing, but it actually won't. Often you've got these billing engines that sit outside the ERP and they've got to integrate with the ERP. And if you don't get your billing right, then it's just manually intensive. You've just got to get people all over that. So when you choose an ERP, I just think about your billing cycles.
Yeah. It's a little ironic that it sounds like the billing and the accounting side of affiliate marketing is actually becoming a pain point as if you work with 10 affiliate programs, that's in theory easy. But once you're getting, let's say, 50 different payments coming in per month, and they're all varying amounts and they don't pay on time, and then there's fees, and then there's fees that are taken and they're not even documented. And then they come from obscure companies like WorldPay, which is just a payment gateway. We're talking to a lot of affiliates and going, how do we try to solve this so we make their lives easier? I think there are solutions, but I don't think there's stuff out of the box, and there's no
your payment providers and banks are extremely important in this business. If you don't have good relationships with them, you really struggle. WorldPay, I used to work for WorldPay. But that's obviously massive. Was FIS, now WorldPay again. But even you're just in the gaming space, you almost, payment providers and affiliate and gaming, they just go together. And I don't think that there's a perfect solution out there just yet, but there's some that are more optimum than others. Absolutely.
Right.
Payments are, I've seen affiliates where the affiliate business has got, also for paying out, they've got hundreds of credit cards in the business, and they do things on credit cards. Exactly. There's all kinds of things where people are chasing the revenue and they'll do anything, put any bad process in place just to make it happen.
It sounds like we need to build some sort of auditing software. It's plug and play your system, and let's see how good or bad you are, and give your give yourself a score, because when you say those things about like people having messy credit cards, I know in the last couple of years we cleaned up our credit cards. So it was like company credit card, things are a
Yeah.
bit more aligned. And we're already thinking 2 steps ahead about going, what are the advantages of having multiple cards if we segment data where we can say all payments that go through here are X, all revenue
Yes.
that comes through this account is something else. The perfect
And,
world,
and
it line up perfectly.
and when you do it though, you have to think, you've got to think big, right? You say, does a solution that works for us today work for us in 5 years' time if we hit our growth targets? And I think a lot of people get it wrong then as well. You put in a real tactical solution, which is just not scalable, right? So hindsight's great, isn't it? But there are these problems for business owners.
All right. So another challenging question that's on the same theme, kind of like valuations, is what are the ways you can get a valuation of your company? I think you said one where it's let's go through your balance sheet and kind of document your intellectual property. And I think on the other side of it is the company wants to buy you. Should you maybe this is not ethical, but you can actually fish and go, what would someone pay on basically
Well, this is a job. Okay, particularly in this industry, I've seen different deals that just contradict each other. Like I've moved away from saying, let's do a discounted cash flow forecast, let's do this, let's do that. I think you can do all of those things and the numbers can tell you what you want to hear. But benchmarking, this industry is so volatile and there's so many peaks and troughs and it's so seasonal and states open up and people get excited and blah, 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 that there's really a lot of inflated valuations that you see out there. And big companies paying that kind of money don't really care. So it's a hard one, but I think everyone's always going to look at EBITDA and a multiple of EBITDA. Saying that, I've just done 2 acquisitions for loss-making companies. So EBITDA was nothing, right? I still went for some decent money. But I think benchmarking is a good one. Go and find a competitor out there who's just been sold, see what it is, work it out. I think that's one. I think getting an evaluation done of your tech stack at a point in time is probably a good idea. I think that companies will also look at synergies. If you think about it, sorry, let me just go back a bit. But again, right place at the right time. I'm sitting in a house in a really small village of 350 people. It's a massive house. And I think it's worth $1 million, say. But the chances of me getting $1 million are tiny unless there's a person with a huge family who actually wants a big house in a small village. But if that person drives in tomorrow, it'll be sold next week. And it's like that as well, as you say. So, yeah, so I don't have one approach to this. Someone will say to me, how much do you think I can get for this? And there'll be a number of things that cross my mind, and a lot of them aren't formal. I do always like to, for my own purposes, do a discounted cash flow forecast where you look at the projections. But that is just based on what the seller tells me.
Exactly. But would you say it's interesting? I know in my situation where we've talked to companies and they're like, from our personal situation, we're approaching profitability, but we've had one person wanted to talk M&A and they said, are you profitable yet? And we said, no, but that was important to them. But we're like, look, if you care about that, like you just told me that you about 2 deals that are companies that weren't profitable, but they had something else intangible, and we think we're the same. So do you think that there's just people out there that have like maybe an old school mentality of going, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I only want cash flow positive businesses. There's people, that's their thesis, but I'm missing out on opportunity.
Definitely. And I think it's all about, I think to a large extent, it's also about financial resources available to the buyer, because, massive companies can put in some bridging finance, can buy a business that's going to be loss making for 5 years. They want the tech. They don't really care. But generally speaking, if an acquirer doesn't actually want to, they don't have the cash. If the company needs funding over a period of time and they don't have the resources to fund that company month after month, then what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to borrow some cash. They're going to go and get a facility or do whatever. And when you start putting that back into the P&L, They want to make sure that they understand exactly when the company they want to acquire is going to start generating free cash flow. Otherwise, it impacts their funding. So I think to a large extent, there is a bit of that. There is a bit of that. And even if they are interested in a non-profitable company, they'll definitely want to know when it becomes profitable and how accurate your projections are. And if you've got 24 months of loss, but the loss keeps getting smaller and it's going in the right direction, that's quite powerful as well.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Then maybe another question I have has to do with borrowing money. So we're talking about M&A, and then there's what is a startup or an affiliate can they do? They can raise money for investment, but I think there's a lot of people that don't really talk about a part of the business, which is raising debt to go, when can you take out a loan to accelerate your business? When we look at the big players, Better Collective and gambling.com in the news, like in the press release, that they've taken out loans because they don't really need to sell more debt. They've already got, do you need to be in that cash flow position to be able to consider debt? Or is it more of a situation where you'll just be able to pay off the debt? So it's more strategic to say, I'm going to keep the equity and I'm just going to say, look, I'll pay the interest when time is due.
Yeah. Depending on who you talk to, you'll get a different answer. So my opinion, look, if you believe in your company, which I hope most people do, it tugs at the heartstrings to give away equity, right? Because you've been there, you've been in the trenches, you built this thing up, you had sleepless nights, you've worked with your co-founders, and now someone comes in and says, I'll give you 5 million for 20% of your company. So
Yes,
it's a tough one to swallow. But on the flip side, debt is a bit of a nightmare as well, because a lot of these, particularly in this space, you've got quite a few bespoke. There's a risk appetite associated with the affiliate marketing space in gaming and gaming in general. So generally, the bog standard debt providers are going to be quite different. They won't be bog standard. They're going to be providers that have got a different kind of risk appetite, and having a different kind of risk appetite means that the terms and conditions are going to be quite tough. So what they'll do is they'll put in some warrants and covenants. What potentially is, if you default, we take some of your company anyway. So things like that. And then a lot of providers have quite tough covenants, different ratios that you have to hit, otherwise you're in trouble. And then there's obviously the repayments that are quite tough. You have a bad month, you've got to have money in the bank to actually pay them. But I'm just thinking back to some debt providers. A lot of them, you can go and take a loan, which is debt, and then you can take out a facility, which you only use if you need it, which is quite a nice thing to have. But a lot of companies raise funds or go to debt when they want to acquire. They want to do a whole lot of acquisitions, but they don't have the money. So then they go in and they go for debt, and then the covenants are just tough. And you get this money, and I've seen cases where they've got access to a massive facility, and then you read the small print and it says, the facility is yours, but you can't use it for M&A. So you've just got to be really careful with debt, and you've just got to model the debt quite well so you understand exactly where you're going to be.
No, I get that. It's just thinking about it from like the M&A point of view. It's interesting, but pivoting a slightly different. In the SaaS space, there's actually a bunch of lending agencies that have come about, and they're interesting programs. So what they do is they're a SaaS product that you plug in your Stripe data, your QuickBooks, your bank, and then they basically say, here's your entire dashboards. Here's where you're losing customers. Here's your projected revenue. And then what they'll do is they'll basically go, we'll lend you money based on your actual data. So we're seeing more in the SaaS space, and this product was created because SaaS companies were like, look, we're SaaS and we know we're growing in the right direction. And banks don't really understand SaaS because banks, they're not really encountering SaaS. So I'm just wondering, maybe there's a future product out in the market. We could be a part of that.
How much time have we got, John? I don't want to take all your time.
No, we got a good half hour max.
Okay, this is interesting. No, it's really interesting you say that, because I've just done a SaaS exit. Got nothing to do with gaming, got to do with ERPs. But as you say, people don't really understand SaaS because you migrate. So you've got the hockey stick approach, right? Where it goes down. And then if you run your business, then you get the right results. but so much about, so, well, the exit I did, and I guess all of them, SaaS multiples are massive. If you compare a SaaS multiple to general bog standard business and affiliates, something else, they are quadruple. And I guess that's because so much emphasis is being placed on that recurring revenue piece, right? And customer churn. So if your customers aren't churning and you're growing at a decent pace and you're keeping that recurring revenue, then life's good. Then there's a huge amount of confidence in your business. So you're right. So if banks and lenders are able to plug into that data, it's data, right?
Yeah.
You're a
Plus,
data guy. I
it-
think it's powerful.
It's similar to revenue share, like recurring revenue. We've got recurring revenue share. It's almost identical models with, it goes back to what you said earlier. There is risk, like there's SEO risk, there is operators going out of business. So you do have churn in the affiliate space. It just looks a little different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But there's definitely something there, I think. Fundraising debt is a difficult process at the moment, to mention interest rates, but just the whole debt process is quite tough for a business.
Would you
You know,
say
it's-
that is like the last frontier that people seem to understand the least? Because I'll be honest, like here's my business journey. It's build affiliate sites, create a startup, and then raise capital. So we're selling equity. And now we have this opportunity for debt. And it's like the more I start reading about debt, the more I hear that not everyone uses it to their advantage. And there's a lot of clever strategies you can use to your advantage. Like you said, you go
Absolutely.
back, gambling.com, Better Collective, they're using these.
Absolutely. And I'm not clever enough to advise on that, but there are different products out there as well. And you may find a product that is cost effective and suits your business perfectly. And that might be an RCF or some kind of facility that you don't use all the time. You can top up, you can repay. And that's debt. That's there. It's on the balance sheet. I think the thing to look out for is really tough, biggish loans where the warrants are tough, the terms and conditions are tough, because then your business isn't going as well as you would like it to. You're almost imprisoned. And I think that's quite tough. Often with raising capital through investment and fundraising and investors, often the investors who invest in your business understand this industry. And if they understand the industry, they understand the peaks and troughs. So the kind of story's easier, and there's less pressure on not less pressure on management. If you've got decent investors, they on the journey with you.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, we're assuming that they're the ones that know the space inside out,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that are understanding how can they not just add value, but what's the word? It's like arbitrage. Like, for example, acquire an affiliate site, and then the first thing you do say, I've got a bank load of better deals. We're going to do like deal arbitrage right off the bat. I've heard this affiliate's actually taking 6 months to recover their value. Just absolutely insane.
Totally insane, absolutely insane, and not very fair either.
Oh.
Yeah.
The next question I have is more to do with tips. So like I said, I'm going down this accounting journey of going, what can I do to help affiliates use any accounting tips that would help them? So the two that I'm giving to affiliates are, one's on the payment and tracking side. So for example, I ask affiliates all the time going, do you use like one IBAN or do you have multiples? And the most common answer is they've got one, but they do frequently have payments where they're like, I have no idea who this is. We spent days trying to consolidate this. So I said, if you can isolate your problematic payments, then you can give them unique IBANs. That's one tip to basically say, okay, you're funneling your data through sources that are source of truth. And then the other one is what my accountant did this years ago. Like we were doing year end and I had this invoice and it was unpaid. And he said, what are we doing about this? And it was a substantial amount. Won't name the program, but they just went out of business. Invoice is done. So he's, yeah, anytime you have these unpaid invoices, which hate to say it, it's happening a bit more frequently in affiliate marketing. Like I think depending on your jurisdiction, you can claim this back as a loss for your books.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you need to turn a bad situation into something good, right?
If you can.
Yeah, if you can. No, look, we've discussed quite a few tips. Mine aren't necessarily for affiliates or accounting tips. I just being really well organized. And I don't just mean in the finance space. So I've got some clients that It's weird. It is quite strange, but I've got some clients, as I said, that have been operating for a while. They're doing quite well and they've got nothing. And then I have some new clients where the founders are all over it and they asking me what they should do. But one real thing, something that I do really often is when I'm trying to educate someone about organization, I use data room structure to help them get organized. Because who knows, you want to exit one day and a data room structure is there for a reason, right? That's what investors want to see. So I often, if I'm starting from scratch, will say, this is what a data room looks like. You've got finance, you've got tax, you've got commercial, you've got legal, you've got people, you've got technology. Any contract, documentation, invoice, set of accounts, whatever you've got, get it filed in your data room structure. You can call it whatever you want, but I use a data room structure because then when numerous reasons, you're raising funds, you've got the structure. You're having an audit, you've got the structure. You're looking for an exit, you've got the structure. Sometimes acquirers get reverse due diligence done on them as well. You've got the structure if you're an acquirer. So my tip is just day one, get that organized. When we set up our business, we did that. We went, we've got nothing, we've got no clients, but we're going to set it up as if we've got loads. And we did that. So I think that's one. I think just putting in a system immediately is another one. Even if you've got 2 transactions going through your bank account, I think that's one. And then I think what is really good, so if you've got, whether it's fractional finance support or internal finance support, no one knows more about your plans than you, the founder, the owner, the entrepreneur. You've got to educate the finance people about where you want to go with your business. And often, as a result of that, you get a commercial finance person because bog standard accountants, right? Debits and credits, we close the books, we keep you out of jail, we submit your accounts and your tax returns, and then we go home and we watch TV or do whatever. But accountants need to understand more about the business.
Yeah, I think it's general best practices. Just pretend you have an investor coming on board. The cleaner you have the books, are like, wow, these guys work hard. Like, it's the messy room syndrome. It's walk into someone's house and you want to see something clean and organized, and it shows that there's attention to detail. And I'm just starting to learn as my pattern that I think companies that they have more success, they have more organization. Yeah, they're not doing it they're doing it for business reasons. Some people, this might be fun to them, but I think for most people, it's, oh, I don't want to clean my room.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing just to remember is that the finance function, accountants, whether they're internal or external, wherever, they're a control function, right? They're controlling the business. They'll tell you whether you're making a good decision or a bad decision. And that's commercial finance. They need to business partner with you to give you that commercial intelligence to help you make the right decisions. So another tip is for business owners, really to treat the finance staff, accountants as business partners, not just accountants.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that's how you get the most out of them.
Another unplanned question is, I think it's on topic, is the concept of boards and advisory boards. When you're a small affiliate, it can be you as a single person. It could be 2 people as a startup. You could be 5 people at some point. When would you advise people to start looking at setting up an advisory board? I've seen a few affiliates do this. And when I've talked to them and said, how did that work? And they basically said it was a great experience. Like, sometimes they get someone as an advisor that their expertise is finance. Sometimes the expertise is human resources, and it goes on and on.
Yeah, look, what is an advisor, right? I've got ex-colleagues, friends, family members who are skilled in certain things, and I ask them for advice and they give me advice. And often I implement that advice. But I think the danger of not having that external influence and appraisal almost is vast, because 2 business owners, 2 founders, let's say they're 2, and you go off and you start building your business, you get so ingrained and entrenched in the problem or opportunity statement that sometimes there are a lot of things that you miss all around, whether it be legal, finance, accounting, or whatever. So I think it's always very good to have advisors. Maybe they're not in the form of, maybe it's one, maybe it becomes an advisory board. Always good to have them just as a sounding board. Now, I think when that's early stage, but I think then as the business succeeds and grows, you need a real board, right? You need a board. And sometimes non-exec directors and boards and that they expect payments, sometimes they don't, right? But I do think then that as you reach that point in your maturity, board comes with corporate governance and you need that. It is essential. And you need the right expertise on that board. You need a strong chairperson, but you need finance person, potentially someone who knows the industry, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's really important. I've started as an advisor and then become a board member as the company grows. I volunteered as an advisor in the past and then the company's successful and then I'm on the board. Really important, John.
You actually answered part of my second follow-up question to that, which is, I think a lot of people, they maybe have a fear that they get the wrong person because sometimes you'll get an offer. It's, look, I want this board position, but it comes with equity and they want it locked in immediately, when other advisors have said this should be vested over time. And then it's, what should the payment structure be? And it could be, like you said, there's volunteer over here, which maybe is possibly rare. I don't know. There's direct payment, and then there is payment in the form of equity. And then I think where we've been concerned is, what if we join with someone and then we're like, it's not working out? And we've been in those situations where after 3 months, we're like, we're definitely not the right fit and we need everyone on the same page.
Which is why having an advisory board to start is quite good, because maybe there's certain diamonds in the advisory board that when you become formal, they're there and they're there with you. Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, John, in terms of payment structures and things. I'm a bit old school, really, where I think if I put in the time and effort, somehow I'll be rewarded. I generally work for people or assist people that I have a good relationship with, so it generally works out. But that can get quite complicated in terms of remuneration, how well the business does. I've seen it go horribly wrong, and I've seen many relationships get ruined as a result.
Yeah, it's not easy
The
to
hard
do
way.
that. And for me, fortunately, I'm lucky to have a business partner that he's the one that stays on top of that and says, this is how we should do it. And just to be patient. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people lose patience going, oh, I need this. And then I think there's a part of the business where it's advisory boards to look more professional. And then it's, let's take out investors to look more professional to make it look like we've made it. And yeah, I think there's
Yeah, and that's a crock.
patience.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. That happens all the time.
Yeah. And then last question to wrap this all up is, what do you see of the future of affiliate marketing as it intersects with business intelligence?
Yeah. So you should be answering this. I think, as I said, I think that everything's just going to be, affiliate marketing is already tough, right? If you look at some of the companies 10, 12, 15 years ago, when things were new, margins were huge. You could operate in most geographies. Compliance wasn't as tough as it is today, blah, blah, blah. And I think over the years, affiliates have had to be more innovative. They've had to diversify revenue streams, look elsewhere, look at partnerships, look at different things. I think with business intelligence and AI and just data, access to data, I think the smarts will get smarter. They'll be able to do more with the data. I think it's going to be so much more competitive because you can access things at your fingertip that previously you couldn't. So it's going to be a lot more competitive. And I think what you'll find is if you haven't got specialists in that field, researching, looking, mining, doing what they need to do, those affiliates will fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
I think it's all about data, right? It's scary, actually, but it's true.
It's scary in a good way. You could argue in a bad way, but I look at iGaming in particular as saying it's not very data driven as much as it could be. So my personal take in the next couple of years is that I think the industry could double over in a short amount of time just by using more data products and people just getting better. I was talking to an affiliate customer the other day, and they basically said one of the problems in iGaming is that it's just the cash, like all the money that's in the business, gets in the way of people actually getting better. But where's the pressure? And I think the pressure is going to come in the form of these companies that are getting bigger, getting stronger, doing M&A in the right way, and then going, wait a minute, it's do you want to compete or are you going to be under them? It's all about working harder.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, by the way, what I didn't say, and I think we've got one more minute, but when I was talking about data room setups and all of that, I kid you not, a deal that takes 6 months could take 3 months, and 3 months could take a month and a half. You can save so much time and money on legal fees and on accounting fees and things like that if you just get really well organized from a setup perspective. That's another good thing. And you wouldn't need people like me, right? You wouldn't need exit support because you could do it all yourself. My whole selling pitch is I will save you money by leading your exit or acquisition because it just runs amok, right?
I would agree definitely on the legal fees. I've been there, done that, and going, oh, we need to do all of this. But
And if you're the seller and your affairs aren't organized and the acquirer puts it on hold and says, I'll come back to you in 3 weeks, that's 3 weeks of legal fees. And your cash is not going the right way. Yeah, exactly. You've got to get those processes efficient. Unbelievable.
Rowan, thank you so much for doing this. I know accounting might not be everyone's favorite topic, but I do think there's a lot of people that care about doing business the right way. And I think this is a topic that I think is going to get more attention as the years go by. So I want to pass it back to you and ask, how can people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn. So this is is this on LinkedIn? If it is,
It
you
will.
can get hold of me on LinkedIn. And I've got a website, not the most awesome, but I think it's good enough. And there's some contact links on there. Or they can ask you, John.
Well, either or. You ask me, I'll do a DM intro, but aside from that,
Yeah.
those in the show notes.
No, and we've really got a number of models. We look to fit the client, hybrids, fractionals, call it what you want, once off, anything.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. Cheers, John. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Affiliate BI podcast. I'd like to take this time to ask for a small favor to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps us expand our reach to rank higher in podcast directories and reach more listeners.